It's Red Eye Radio. Talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios. For Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, Dan Mandis, this is Red Eye Radio.
And welcome on in. Good morning, good evening, and it is Monday, December 29th. And holy mackerel, I went to bed. You know, when I do this show filling in for Gary and Eric, I have to go to bed at stupid times. And so I went to bed at about 3 o'clock this afternoon. I woke up at about 9 o'clock this evening. I went to bed. It was like 70 degrees. It is now 57 degrees here in Nashville. And by the time the radio program is over, it'll be about 35. Listen to this headline from the Daily Mail. I don't, obviously this is a syndicated show. Don't know where you are, but this is heard all over the country. Headline, fast-moving winter storm and possible bomb cyclone is set to sweep across the country as 40 million Americans are placed on alert. They say that 40 million Americans placed under that alert ahead of a huge winter storm, which is set to barrel across the country and dump at least 2 feet of snow in some parts. Wow. I mean, I'm telling you right now, to go from, I went out to lunch this afternoon in shorts, and now I am bundled up in my basement studio. They say treacherous conditions are forecast throughout the day today, with meteorologists warning of the potential of that bomb cyclone as a cold Arctic front clashes with that warmer air. So they've got now blizzard warnings in effect from North Dakota down to southern Minnesota and Iowa, with 3 to 8 inches of snow and gusts up to 45 mile an hour expected. So with all of that, and you're talking about places in areas of Wisconsin, the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and they're talking about heavy snow. We here in Nashville, where I live, we had some really high winds. Both of my Christmas inflatables are now deflated. Santa Down, also our big inflatable that we have out front, a Christmas tree, also is deflated. It's probably time to take them down anyway. But they are talking about massive delays at the airports as well. So wherever you are, because of course you know that those delays in cities all across America, they can cause delays across. If you're, for example, in Chicago and there's delays in Chicago, well, if you're flying somewhere else, it has a domino effect. So check with your airport if you're planning on flying today, tomorrow, this week, because it is going to be a really, really rough week. Weather-wise, really cold. We'll keep you updated on all the latest here on Red Eye Radio. Again, my name is Dan Mandis, filling in for the guys this week. Gary and Eric, they will return after the first of the year. We do have a lot going on. I said this last week that this is typically the time of year where it's a slow news week, but not today, at least, I can tell you. Again, for this Monday, December 29th, I love this headline from the New York Post. You ready? Walls are closing in. Talking about Tim Walz, governor for the fine state of Minnesota. He is really getting slammed in coverage, of course. This video, I shared some of this video with you last time we were together. This YouTuber, his name is Nick Shirley. And so, I mean, you know about all of the fraud going on in Minnesota, the Somali fraud. And so Nick Shirley, this YouTuber, I guess you would call him a photojournalist, a video journalist. But he goes to Minnesota. And he starts just knocking on the doors of a lot of these daycare centers. 42-minute video. And again, I played some of this on, I think it was, Wednesday morning we were here together last. It's Friday morning. Friday morning we were here last. But it's now gone viral. Like, I played a first view on Friday morning. It's now got this video over 100 million views and still going strong. If you want to see the entire video of Nick Shirley, you can follow me on the socials at Dan Mandis Show. But he's knocking on the doors, of all of these daycare centers where the children are actually non-existent. This is all part of that huge Minnesota fraud story where they're talking about $8, $9, $10 billion worth of fraud, and they're saying that this is just the beginning.
Headed over to the infamous Quality Learning Center, which actually spells Quality Leering Center on the outside of their sign. That's how blatant this fraud is here at this daycare.
Don't open up!
Yeah, so, I mean, it's actually really funny. So he goes to this one daycare center, Quality Learning Center, but they left out the N. So it's this sign on the door or above the door says Quality Leering Center. He goes to all of these different daycares, and when this story started percolating, he uncovered that these daycare centers, again, had signs that had misspellings on it. But as you just heard, the woman at the door at this one particular daycare center, he's knocking on this door. This crazed woman is outside screaming, "Don't open up," because she is accusing him, Nick Shirley, YouTuber, of being with ICE.
How do you have ICE here, ma'am? I'm literally a YouTuber.
Don't open up!
Ma'am, what do you think about the fraud that's taking place here in Minnesota?
Don't open up!
I mean, it's
We
just
have ice!
so funny.
And what do you think about this place being licensed for 99 children
Don't open up!
and getting $4 million
Don't
over
open
the
up! It's ice!
$4 million in the last 2 years?
Just
Go
so
away!
What do you think about that? Are you in
Go
favor?
away!
Are you in favor of that?
Go away!
You know where
You're
the-
not welcome here!
Are you-
Shame on you!
Shame. Well, shame on you, lady. And all of these folks in Minnesota for taking part in this fraud. And shame on, of course, Governor Tim Walz, the Walz closing in, of course, Tim Walz. You've got the Attorney General Keith Ellison. You also have, of course, Somalian Ilhan Omar. That other voice you heard, by the way, in that video is a guy named David who had been doing his own investigation on this. Not since this started. He's been doing his own investigation on this for years. Doing the work that Minnesota media refused to do. And the local media in Minnesota, they've been silent for years. David has been trying to contact, the local news media, the local television stations, the local NPR station, the local newspaper as well. And they refuse to cover it. And so, David, I have watched the entire 42-minute video that you can see on my social media feeds at Dan Mandis Show. And he's got offices right there in the middle of all of these various Somali-run child care centers. And he says, yeah, no kids. Media doesn't seem to care. The governor doesn't care. The attorney general doesn't care. Ilhan Omar doesn't care either.
This is massive fraud that is beyond anyone's imagination, the scope. And so, for example, there's a child care not far from here in Minneapolis that has two child cares listed at the same address.
Yep.
And together, they're licensed supposedly for 120 children. I have never seen a single child there ever, and I've been by that place at least 100 times.
These Somalians, these groups are setting up these daycares, these child care centers, getting money from the government, but there's no kids.
No kids.
No kids. And by the way, the other thing is these facilities have all kinds of violations, horrendous violations as well, and yet they are allowed to remain. One of the things that they spoke about in this video is that they don't do wellness checks. They have had these violations, and they assume that these daycare centers run by Somalis, they are taking care of the problems, but they don't do consequential visits. They don't. They do the one visit, they rack up these violations, but then the state doesn't do follow-up visits. And again, the fraud is just so massive and nobody cares.
There's one building that has 14 Somali healthcare companies at the same address. There's another building in St. Paul that has 22 Somali healthcare businesses at the same address.
And the government knows about this.
The government knows they're writing the checks. Yeah, the Democrats over there just writing the checks.
You know what I've noticed? I don't know if you've noticed this, but Friday morning, I told you the story of Gavin Newsom and all of that fraud and all of that corruption that has happened in California. Of course, we all know Chicago is incredibly corrupt, and now we find in Somali soda, my term of affection, term of endearment for Minnesota, Somali soda, and you've got all of this fraud there as well. You notice all of this corruption, all of these corrupt roads lead to Democrats. Have you noticed that? And now the FBI has gone into Minnesota, and they're really starting to dig in to see who was responsible, who knew what, and so forth. We've got Kash Patel over the weekend announcing this, but there's so much to this. Because you have the health care centers, you have the daycare centers. And one of the other things that they talked about in this video, 42-minute video, was they have these transportation companies as well, run by Somalis. And old David there, who's been doing the work of the local media, he says these vans with these transportation centers haven't moved in months. Yet they get millions of dollars in state funding. And again, this video, over 100 million views that Nick Shirley has put together. And there's so much to this. But as far as Tim Walz goes, the walls are closing in Tim Walz. Remember that he shut down state employees that were calling out the fraud, which, by the way, in Minnesota, it's actually against the law to not call this fraud out. And some are accusing Tim Walz of breaking the law by not tackling the fraud when he knew about it. Here's the other thing. I mean, if you listened to me last week when I was filling in for the guys, I told you that there were state employees that were calling out the corruption, and Tim Walz shut them down. He bullied them. He silenced the whistleblowers. $4 million. And this is from Minnesota Representative Republican Tom Emmer. $4 million of hard-earned tax dollars going to an education center that can't even spell learning correctly. Care to explain this one, Tim Walz? They spelled it leering. Unbelievable. New York Republican Congressman Mike Lawler going further, calling for people to be arrested and prosecuted, as well as for Walz to be held accountable for the scandal. Now, one guy, this guy David, says that the Somali community is very closed off. They don't talk to anyone other than other Somalis. One of the things that I noticed is, they would knock on the door, and the doors, of course, are locked, and the shades are drawn. They actually, one place, it looked like they had tinfoil on the windows. But they pretend, or they don't, either way, not to speak English. So it's like, what do you want? Right? I mean, that kind of stuff. And so, Shirley's saying, listen, I want to register my son for daycare. Why? Well, can I just fill out some paper? No, you can't fill out paperwork. I mean, it's just incredible.
We're going to go to these daycare centers. We're going to see what's actually happening.
Okay, so we have to be careful because these people are very violent. They're exceptionally violent.
Now, with all of David's evidence, we headed out to the streets of Minneapolis to see how much fraud we could uncover in one afternoon.
Yeah, and they go to place after place after place, and some of these places actually have several daycare centers registered at one address, including this one.
Where are the kids? Where's anybody? How can there be nobody here? And it's like this every single day. I've never seen a single child here. In 9 years, I've never seen a single child at this building.
Yeah, what's weird is this place has no playground, no kids, no windows, no people. The doors are locked, and it's in the middle of the day. And you heard what David said, that not only is the Somali community very closed off, but they're also, David says, very violent. And so as they're at this place, a black van pulls up, a woman gets out and runs in. But she won't talk to anyone, including Nick Shirley and this guy, David. Can't use his last name because he doesn't want to end up killed by these Somalians. And she refuses to answer any question So then they go to another place.
I knocked on the door, and to my surprise, somebody actually answered the door.
Hello? Can we speak? I would like to check a child in the daycare.
Why?
Can I speak to a manager?
I love that. I'd like to check a child into daycare. Why? I mean, it is so face-palming. And by the way, on the screen of this video that has racked up over 100 million views, on the screen there is a fraud counter, and it's like they visited in this video a couple of daycare centers. It's like 20 minutes into the video. They've already gone up to a $9 million of fraud and counting.
Can I put my son in a daycare here?
No, I don't know.
Can I speak to someone?
No, I don't know.
No? Yeah, I would like to see if I can put my son Joey here.
Who's your son, Joey?
My son Joey. Can I check out daycare center?
No! You're a liar. I'm the owner.
Do you put your kid here in this daycare?
No.
There is one child in there. Yeah, I'd like to know if this is a legit business.
Me, I'm scared of you too. How come I explain everything?
You're scared of me?
Yeah.
Why?
Because of your curry.
Because of my color. You said you're scared of me because of my color. Does that make you a racist?
Yeah, no.
Oh, no. It doesn't make me racist, she says. I mean, it goes on, and I think this is blowing the lid off this story. And so now you do have the FBI involved. We'll get into more of that coming up next. This really looks bad for the local media in Minnesota because this has been going on for a long time. And again, Nick Shirley, a YouTuber, is doing the work of the local media. 866-90-RED-EYE is the phone number. We'll return next.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at JJ Keller. In order to manage speed, you need to understand the 4 factors involved in stopping a vehicle. Perception distance is the distance a vehicle travels from the time you see a hazard until your brain recognizes it. The perception time for an alert driver is approximately 3/4 of a second. Reaction distance is the distance a vehicle travels from the time your brain tells your foot to move from the accelerator until your foot hits the brake pedal. The average driver has a reaction time of 3/4 of a second. Brake lag distance also needs to be taken into account. When operating a vehicle with air brakes, it takes about half a second for the mechanical operation to take place. Finally, braking distance is the distance it takes a vehicle to stop once the brakes are applied. Braking distance is affected by the weight, length, and speed of the vehicle, as well as road condition. This tip was brought to you by JJ Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It is Red Eye Radio. Appreciate you listening. And the phone number is always 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339. I'm also utilizing my text line that I use for my morning show in Nashville, Tennessee. So if you can't call in, you can text in 615-737-9986. Always appreciate getting text messages from all across the country. Just to let you know where we are going tonight, there is, as I said, a lot going on. We do have this fraud story out of Somali Day, where, I mean, the walls are closing in on Tim Walz. We have more on that. The FBI is now in Minnesota, and I think that it looks like they are, if they're not already, they're going to start raiding some of these places. My opinion is they should start raiding some of the politicians that knew about this as well, including Tim Walz. We also have some information regarding the economy, what is going on with your money. It's a big weekend out at Mar-a-Lago this week, I should say, because they are meeting Donald Trump's economics team. They are meeting to discuss how to bring affordability back into play. We'll talk about that, including housing. That is a very big deal. We'll talk about that, illegal immigration, and a lot more right here on Red Eye Radio.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio. from the Uniden America Studios.
It is Red Eye Radio, 866-90. Red Eye is the phone number, 866-907-3339. My name is Dan Mandis. I host a morning show in Nashville, Tennessee, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. That is on 6 to 10 Eastern Time. Check it out if you would like. And I am being mocked, apparently, by the state of Alaska. So I came on, if you were listening at the beginning of this hour, and I was complaining about the fact that I went out to lunch this afternoon and Sunday afternoon, and it was about 70, 72, 73 degrees here in the fine state of Tennessee in Nashville. And now I am just freezing in my downstairs basement studio where I'm doing the show because the temperature, just like all across the country, has plummeted from about here in Nashville, I don't know, 72, 73 degrees down to 57 and dropping big time. And so I am, of course, all bundled up. Well, somebody from Alaska says on that text line, 615-737-9986, Dan, living in Alaska at minus 45 makes me laugh at your commentary on the weather, not just you, but all of the lower 48. You know what? Fair point, man. Fair point. I mean, Alaska is a beautiful, and I mean a beautiful state. That is on one of my bucket lists of states that I do want to visit. But holy mackerel, does it get cold. So anyway, good luck to you folks out there in Alaska and all across the country, actually, as we started out the show with the fact that we're getting hammered with really, really cold temperatures after it was, really a nice warm weekend. Now heading into New Year's Eve, it has become and becoming incredibly cold. And as I said at the outset of the program, as we began, it started out about 57 degrees here in Nashville at midnight. And then by the time 5 a.m. starts, it'll be about 35 degrees. And so, and again, a lot of snow expected, especially in the upper Midwest. You can also expect a lot of flight delays as well. So be sure and call ahead of your flight. Now, the economy and your money. Donald Trump, this week, you know that affordability is a very big deal. And the Democrats, they're making it a very big deal. And as I have said often, I believe that they will rue the day when they said that they're going to make the midterm elections all hinge on affordability now that we've seen a lot of really good economic indicators. Now, I'm just going to tell you that not only am I not an economist, but I worked in radio for over 35, 40 years, and so it's not like I'm an expert on money because I don't make a lot in radio. But I can tell you that there's a lot of people really smarter than me that are saying that, yeah, you know what, the economy is showing a pretty good turnaround. I'm not convinced as of yet. I've been covering the economy for many years, but I'm here to tell you that the left has been for a long time, and I've never seen this before. They've really been rooting for a recession. Have you noticed that? Now, when Joe Biden was in office and the inflation rate was up over 9%, gasoline was up over $5, depending on where you were, the Republicans were not rooting for a recession. Not like the Democrats are right now with Donald Trump in office. And so at Mar-a-Lago this week, Donald Trump and his team are meeting to talk about this concept, this notion of affordability. Now, that does include, of course, housing. This is a very big deal. This is Kevin Hassett. He is one of the higher-ups there in the Trump administration on economics, and this is part of what he had to say about housing.
We've got a list of things that we're going to present to the president.
The president's chief economist teasing what he says will happen in coming days as the administration mulls over what to do about home affordability.
I expect that most of us are going to be down for a big chunk of the week after Christmas at Mar-a-Lago, going through all the plans for next year. And definitely we have a big list of housing ideas that have been vetted very carefully by the cabinet secretaries to present to the president in a week or two. And we'll see which ones he picks.
You know that under Joe Biden, and y'all know this, housing prices skyrocketed depending on where you were, of course. But, 40% in some places. 40%, even higher in other places. That is insanity. So now we have prices under the first year of Donald Trump, and we're talking about housing, and they have moderated, evened out, slowed down a little bit. They're not skyrocketing like they were under Joe Biden, but that doesn't dismiss the fact that housing is still really expensive. And when homes are expensive, rent is expensive as well. So when the prices of homes go up, so does the rent in those cities. I can tell you, in my area of Nashville, the rent over the past several years, it has skyrocketed. So now things have moderated a bit, but the Trump administration, they've got several plans, and some we've heard about, some we, of course, have not. But here's a couple of things that they've spoken about, courtesy of Fox News.
Some ideas already floated include a 50-year mortgage. That would reduce monthly payments, but it could also effectively lead to a lifetime of mortgage debt with massive interest costs. Another idea, portable mortgages. If you already own a home and don't want to move because you locked into a super low rate a few years ago and don't want to lose it, portability could allow you to carry that existing loan to a new house.
So that 50-year mortgage, my own personal opinion on this, that is insane. Because you end up paying massive interest to the bank for years. Now, few people end up in the same home for 50 years, of course. Most folks don't stay in a home more than, 10, 15 years, certainly not 30. But there are some issues here with that 50-year mortgage. And I've bought and sold. I'm here to tell you, friends, because I worked in radio, so I've moved around a lot. The home that I am in now, I think I've been in this home, my wife and I, for about, 8 years now. But I got to tell you that I've bought and sold 10 homes over the years. So this is something I actually know a lot about, especially when it comes to mortgages and all that. So a 50-year loan, do you know how much money you are going to pay in interest to the bank? The majority of your house payment every month would be going to the bank. So on the one hand, if I was a real cynical sort, I could say, well, this whole thing is a sellout to the banks because the banks are going to make a lot of money on these 50-year loans. The possibility, and by the way, if you know anything about loans and the housing market, so if you get a longer loan, it's like a car loan, it's just the same concept. The longer you stretch out the loan, theoretically, the lower your monthly payment. But you're paying that mortgage for a longer period of time. Same with a car loan as well. But most people, their dream, my opinion, part of the American dream, part of my American dream, is having a home that is totally paid off. And I know that there's a debate as to whether or not that is really the smart way to go, but whatever. But with a 50-year loan, the possibility of actually paying off your home eventually is really low. You're more than likely not going to be able to pay off your home with a 50-year loan. And when this story came out, the Trump administration considering, really advocating for these 50-year loans, everybody said this is something that is not very smart. And by the way, the other thing is that if the market tanks, then you're stuck with this really high interest loan for years and no way to get out of it. Now, maybe there are some positives. The only positive that I can think of with a 50-year loan is that you can say that at the very least, this will allow some people to get into homes, starter homes and so forth. And then you stay in it a few years, then maybe you try to refinance or sell it and maybe get a better loan down the road. Maybe you sell it and maybe you try to get a better loan on another house, whatever. The idea of portability, though, I think is actually pretty interesting. So you heard where he talks about portability, where if, I myself, I believe I've got like a 3.2% loan on the home that I have now. So we were in a position a few years ago of maybe, upgrading to a bigger, better house and whatever. This place is a fixer-upper. And so we've done a lot of fixer-upping on this home. And so we've done a lot of things. And we did consider selling it. But we have this great interest rate of 3.2%. And so if we sold this home, even though we've got pretty good credit, I mean, our loan on the interest rate on the loan, it would be higher. I mean, way higher, up to 4.2, 4.5%, probably even higher now. So a lot of people are staying in their homes because they're locked into this really good low interest rate. And so what they're thinking is, okay, if you've got take me, for example, if I've got a 3.2 interest rate here, if I wanted to go buy a bigger, better, well, I could actually take that interest rate with me. It's this idea of portability.
Some people who are empty nesters are living in a 6-bedroom house. They don't need that much space, so it's going to open up that inventory for a growing family.
But that could also trigger a demand spike, causing home prices to go up even faster.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. So the problem that you're going to have is that with the housing market is that whenever you do something, whatever it might be, there's going to be a reaction to whatever you do. Now, remember, J.D. Vance came out, this was a few months ago, and he said that they wanted to build 5 million homes across America, which is great. And I love that. I think that, supply and demand, that's a big part of the economy, of course, especially when it comes to the housing market. But whatever you do, there's going to be a reaction, a market reaction to that. Let's see here. 904 area code says this. Mortgage loans, if an extra principal payment made every year reduces a 30-year to a 15 to 20-year loan, wonder how many years decreases of extra principal on a 50-year loan. Well, it is the same concept. Again, it is just going to take longer to pay. And by the way, I'm going to tell you that is actually what we do here in my house. We've been paying an extra mortgage payment if we can every few months, and that has really helped us here. But affordability, I mean, it is a big deal, whether we're talking about housing, whether we are talking about groceries. Trump, it seems like there's a lot of good things going on in the economy right now. There is still work to be done. I know that. I understand that. But I want you to think about this. The stock market reaching record highs. GDP is up, beating expectations. Gross domestic income is up. Consumer spending is up. We saw record spending on Black Friday. Remember that whole thing? And then on that Monday, when people do all of the online shopping, there is also a lot of spending on that day too. So yeah, consumer spending clearly is up. Gas prices are down, and so you are going to have, when gas prices are down, then just about everything else goes down as well. Inflation beating expectations as well. And that's one of the things that I've most definitely noticed. Remember, the Democrats have been screaming about how Donald Trump was going to kill the economy with these tariffs.
These new tariffs are misdirected, unsubstantiated by facts, and harmful to the very workers we represent.
What is this going to do to American families? It's going to clobber them.
Yeah, that is Tim Kaine, Chuck Schumer as well. And you know what? We just haven't seen that. We have not seen that as of yet. As a matter of fact, we look at the economy right now. We look at some of these indicators, and I do understand. You go to the grocery store, and ultimately, this is what it's all going to hinge on. But affordability, you're talking about a couple of big things. The housing market, which we've already talked about, and also what happens when you go to the grocery store. But to that end, we keep talking about how the Trump administration has been beating expectations, whether we are talking about CPI, whether we're talking about GDP, whatever it is. And, Joe Concha had a good thing to say over there on Fox News.
Since April 2nd, Liberation Day, S&P up 23%, NASDAQ up 35%, Dow Jones up 16% when we were told the stock market was going to crash, and we're probably going towards a recession. So, yeah, they got it wrong again. Not exactly breaking news.
Yeah, got a lot more straight ahead. This is Red Eye Radio.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
Welcome on in to Red Eye Radio. Phone number is 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339. If you can't call in, you can text in. Always appreciate getting text messages from across the country. So far this morning, it's been kind of fun. I got text messages from Florida, even Alaska, Colorado as well. 615-737-9986. Coming up, we've got a lot, including the latest on illegal immigration. That's right. There are some very important conversations going on with the deportation process. We are going to talk about that and a whole lot more. My name is Dan Mandis. Follow me on the socials at Dan Mandis Show. Got a lot more straight ahead. This is Red Eye Radio.
Top of the hour news is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios. For Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, Dan Mandis. This is Red Eye Radio.
And good morning to you, good evening to you, wherever you may be. And always appreciate you listening to Red Eye Radio, filling in for Gary and Eric this week. I host a morning show in Nashville, Tennessee on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. That is 6 to 10 a.m. Eastern Time. You can find that on all the streaming apps. You can also find us if you'd like to watch radio shows in action. I've never understood that, but we have a growing following on YouTube and Facebook as well. Just type in Super Talk 99.7 WTN, and there we are. And here we are. Just a word of caution if you're planning on taking some flights here in the next couple of days. We have a cyclone bomb, according to the weather experts, where we've got really cold temperatures coming in. We've got a lot of snow coming in, especially in the upper Midwest, places like Minnesota, Pennsylvania, etc. So we've got really cold temperatures coming in. I was talking about this a little bit earlier. Where I am in Nashville, Tennessee, it was about 73 degrees earlier today when I went out to lunch at about, noon, 1 o'clock. And it is now about 54 degrees and falling, and it is happening all across the country. So just know when you get up in the morning, you're up right now, so when you get up later on today, it is going to be a lot colder. Now, there's a lot going on. Let's get right to it. Illegal immigration always in the news, and I like what J.D. Vance had to say. He was being interviewed on Fox News, and one of the things that I like about J.D. Vance is, and if you've listened to me for any length of time filling in for Gary and Eric, who return, by the way, after the first of the year, J.D. Vance is my pick for the next presidential election for the Republicans. I expect him to win the primary. He is by far the favored to win the primary for the Republicans. Marco Rubio has even come out. The Secretary of State has even come out and said, oh, yeah, J.D. Vance is the guy. He is such an incredible messenger. And so he's being interviewed on Fox News over the weekend talking about illegal immigration. I think part of what here in the midterms as we head into 2026, of course, a midterm election year, the Trump administration really needs to start talking about their victories, and they need to be focused, honed in, and focused on their victories and affordability as well. And there is absolutely no doubt that one of the biggest victories of the Trump administration is the battle over illegal immigration. They have slammed shut the border. He did that on day one. That has been huge. And also the deportations and the self-deportations, they do continue as well. And one of the things, and I'm in Nashville, Tennessee, as I mentioned, there's a guy by the name of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Of course, the media has been calling him Maryland Man for the longest time. He's not a Maryland man. He is here illegally. He came in here from El Salvador. He is a member of MS-13. At least that's what the local authorities said in Maryland, a couple of judges as well. Other people will say, oh, no, he's not a member of MS-13. And so there's a lot of disagreement. You know the story. The president, the administration tried to deport him. They did deport him. Then they realized they deported him by mistake. They brought him back. It's a whole thing. But the media has been calling Kilmar Abrego Garcia, he's a father and he's a hard worker and all of these other things. And the reality is that Kilmar Abrego Garcia, both sides have a vested interest in this guy because, the Republicans sort of made him the face of illegal immigration. They deported him. Turns out they admit they deported him by mistake, but he should be deported. The reason they deported him by mistake, he wasn't supposed to be deported back to El Salvador. And the reason for that is because there were, and get this, there were other gang members and other gangs in El Salvador that wanted him dead. So if he wasn't a gang member, well, then why did other gang members want him dead? So it's become a whole thing. J.D. Vance was asked about this on Fox News.
There's been a few cases out there where the Democrats and the media say, oh, this person was just an innocent father of three, and then you find out, for example, I think this is the case that you're talking about. Back in 2019, an immigration judge looked at all the evidence, looked at all the data, and concluded that this allegedly innocent person that we sent to El Salvador was actually a member of an MS-13 gang. He had also committed some traffic violations. He had not shown up for some court dates. This is not exactly Father of the Year here.
Nope. And as a matter of fact, so I'm in Tennessee. So in Tennessee, Kilmar Abrego Garcia was pulled over a couple of years ago, and they pull him over, and he's got like 8 or 9 people in his car, clearly trafficking these guys, driving them, I think it was to Maryland. And all they had on them was a toothbrush. And this was during the Biden administration. And so I think it was the Tennessee Highway Patrol. They pull him over. He's pretending not to speak English, and he's got all of these guys in this car. And the agents, the law enforcement, were talking back and forth, and they were saying one guy was sort of schooling the other law enforcement officer, and they were saying, oh, yeah, I guarantee you all these guys in this car, they have nothing on them except maybe a toothbrush. And that turned out to be the case. So they call the Biden administration. This was during Biden. They called the Biden administration, and it was the conversation goes like this. We've got a guy, and he's got some traffic violations. And he was driving erratically, by the way. That was why they pulled him over. And he's got all of these guys in the car. And what do you want us to do with him? Clearly, he is, breaking the immigration laws and so forth. And the Biden administration just told him, let him go. Just let him go. And all those illegals that were in the car that were being trafficked from, I think it was, and somebody may want to fact me on this, but I think it was from Texas to Maryland. They were being driven from one part of the country to the other, i.e. trafficking. And those guys were just allowed to escape. Kilmar Abrego Garcia, trafficking these guys allowed to escape. Because the Biden administration, what did the Biden administration want to do? They wanted as much illegal immigration as possible. They also wanted as many, I'm going to air quote this, legal immigrants in this country as possible. So they paroled. They flew a lot of these illegal aliens into our country. They made them, air quoting them, legally present in our country. And that is how they ended up getting all kinds of government benefits. You all know the story. Donald Trump put an end to all of that. By the way, here's the other thing that J.D. Vance is referring to when he talked about how he was Father of the Year. His wife had actually taken out some restraining orders on him because he was abusing her physically. Yeah. This is the guy that the Democrats have hitched their wagon to heading into the midterm elections of 2026, Kilmar Abrego Garcia.
This is a person that we don't think should be in our country. Here's the most important point, though, Lawrence, is whatever the argument is, whatever the justification is, no one doubts, not even the crazy left-wing media criticized the idea that we could deport this person. They just took issue with the reasoning for why we deported this person. This was unquestionably an illegal alien. This was unquestionably a person who broke the laws to get into our country. This is unquestionably a person an immigration judge had found had zero right to be in the United States of America. We do not ask permission from far-left Democrats before we deport illegal immigrants. We do the American people's business. And again, for the American people who are watching, this is such a weird, mistaken placement of priorities. We need to make our country stronger. We need to create jobs. We need to make our streets safer. What is it about congressional Democrats that get more angry at deporting violent gang members than they do at the victims of those violent gang members? I don't even understand where they're coming from. They've gone off the deep end, and they got to come back to reality.
You know what? As a guy who is watching, I watch politics for a living. I love politics. I'm kind of a political animal. I look at politics almost as a sport. You know what I'm talking about? There's a lot of X's and O's and that kind of thing in politics. And so J.D. Vance is absolutely right. The Democrats have to come back to reality. And if they want to do that, they could do that after the midterm elections. Now, because the American people, when J.D. Vance says the American people are looking at all of this, and it is such a bizarro time. Last week, I talked about Trump opposition syndrome, where the Democrats just reflexively are against everything Donald Trump stands for. I mean, look at all of the big news stories that are in the news these days, right? So we got all of that Somalian fraud going on in Minnesota, which I covered extensively in the first hour of the radio broadcast. You've got all of this Somalian fraud that is going on with the Somalians. Now, they're not illegal, as far as I know. A lot of these folks in Somalia Soda, as I've been not so affectionately calling Minnesota, they're here under some sort of a visa program, etc. But the point is that when you have all of this rampant immigration, illegal or otherwise, it does lend itself to fraud. And then when you start calling it out, you're called a white supremacist, which is exactly what Tim Walz said. Well, if you have a problem with all of these Somalians and they're ripping off the American taxpayer, you must be a white supremacist. It's unflippin' believable. And so J.D. Vance, he's absolutely right. You have all of these Democrats, and they are just spitting mad over this one guy, Kilmar Abrego Garcia. They're spitting mad after this one guy the Trump administration is trying to deport. But they have nothing to say about all of these people that came into our country illegally, and the Biden administration allowed them to come into our country. Heck, the Biden administration, as you know, through the parole program, which they expanded greatly, they flew people into our country. They didn't even tell the states that were having these illegal aliens flown into their state. They didn't even tell the states what the hell was going on. It is crazy. And I love what J.D. Vance said when he says that, you know what? The American people are watching this and they're horrified. I mean, I hate to break it to you, but if you look at some of the problems that we have in this country, most of them, they have some roots in illegal immigration, whether it is crime, whether it is fraud like we're seeing in Minnesota. You look at a lot of the problems that we have in big blue cities across America in the schools. And why is it the schools are going to hell in a handbasket? It's because a lot of the kids don't speak English. Oh, Dan, you're such a white supremacist. No, I'm not. I'm speaking facts. I'm speaking truth. If you've got a problem with the truth, well, then That's a you problem. That's not a me problem. I like what Scott Jennings had to say. He's on CNN with Abby Phillip, who always, of course, is, she has that Trump derangement syndrome, that Trump opposition syndrome, where she is just going to argue over everything, even things that make a lot of sense, like deporting illegal aliens and gang members.
I don't think anybody disagrees with that. 7 million means that they're not just going after criminals.
Well, they're going after people who are in the country illegally, right?
Yeah, I know, but I'm saying the criminals, this is a much bigger universe.
Doesn't that make you a criminal?
No, it doesn't.
To come across the border illegally?
Coming into the country illegally is a civil offense. It's not a criminal offense.
Okay, if you come into the country illegally, here's the message. We're going to find you and send you back.
I love that. I love what Scott Jennings has to say. If you come into this country illegally, then we're going to send you back. If we're going to find you, that's a big part of the problem, of course, isn't it? Is a lot of these folks obviously go underground. You know that the Trump administration has not been able to deport nearly as many illegal aliens as he wanted to. We do have the self-deportation program as well. But you know what? Scott Jennings, he does speak the truth.
I mean, I'm sorry. That's the way it is. And I think the government should pull all the levers at its disposal to find people and pull this off. It's what the American people asked Donald Trump to do. Yes, they should be deporting violent people. Yes, they should be deporting people who committed violent acts before they came here. But at some juncture, if you're going to allow any illegal immigration at all, the message then goes out. Just get here. It'll probably work out for you. That was the last administration.
And then, of course, everybody starts screaming at Scott Jennings, as they always do when he makes a good point. So when we head into the midterm elections, I've told my audience in Nashville this ad nauseum. As we head into the midterm elections, it is my hope that you look at the accomplishments of Donald Trump in the first 2 years. We're just wrapping up the first year now, but in the first couple of years of Donald Trump, you look at the things that he has accomplished, which is a lot. But you also remember what happened when the Democrats were in charge. It was a complete and utter train wreck. The phone number, 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339. If you can't call in, you can text in 615-737-9986. Got a lot more straight ahead.
This morning's USDA Farm Report is brought to you by House Products. Tested, trusted, guaranteed since 1920.
The U.S. cattle inventory in feedlots continues to contract. USDA livestock analyst Michael McConnell notes from the December Cattle on Feed report.
Inventory levels are getting tighter, 2% lower than a year ago. That's mainly the result of relatively tight cattle supplies that we have in the United States. It's also been particularly exacerbated by the lack of cattle imports coming in from Mexico, as currently are not allowed to be imported from Mexico due to concerns about the New World screwworm cases that have occurred in Mexico over the past year or so. And that shows up in the Cattle on Feed report with particularly tight supplies in the southern feeding regions, particularly places like Texas, Oklahoma, and Colorado.
Placements in feedlots were down 11% from this same time in 2024, and at 1.6 million head, the lowest for November since the series began in 1996. Marketings, meanwhile, were down 12% from a year ago. At 1.52 million head, that would be the second lowest marketing number since 1996. I'm Ron Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
This report brought to you by Cenex Fuels and Lubes.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
Red Eye Radio, 866-90-RED-EYE is the phone number. Real quick, Eduardo is in Tampa, Florida on Red Eye. Hey, Eduardo, how are you?
Hey, Dan, it's good to talk to you. We talked before, and I used to live in Chicago, and now I'm in Tampa.
Oh, congratulations.
I think we got some problems here. I know some people on the conservative side don't think we do, but so I watched the Spanish news, and they had a poll on there where they're over 50% unfavorably with Latinos. And I got to use an example where a dad of three, I think, Marine sons in California was apparently roughed up. He eventually wound up being freed. And I don't like the optics of a woman being pushed down to the ground, busting windows. There's people that are being picked up that are actual citizens. And I'm in favor of a work guest program that I think we should have beat the Democrats to.
All right, so a couple of things, Eduardo. Number one, thank you for the call, and I'm running up to a break, so I may not be able to talk about everything that you said before the break. A couple of things, though, and I don't know the specific situations that you're referring to, but there was one woman who the video was out there. She was being, pulled out of the car and all that kind of stuff, and it went viral, and people were horrified. Oh my goodness, look what they're doing to this woman. She tried to hit the ICE agents with a car, right? So there's always the other side of the story. Got a lot more straight ahead on Red Eye Radio.
Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios. Now, for Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, here is Dan Mandis.
866-90 Red Eye is the phone number, 866-907-3339. Appreciated the phone call from Eduardo in Tampa, Florida. He had mentioned a couple of cases, and he was talking about how in the in the Hispanic community, I guess, I don't know exactly what he was talking about, but that the Trump administration is not polling very well because of all of the deportations, and that's fine, well, and good. I want to, but he mentioned a couple of things, but he was very generic about it, so I looked up the cases that he was talking about. Number one, he mentioned, the ICE agents pulling a woman from a car and, throwing her to the ground and all this kind of stuff. And the video went viral, and it did. But when you put the whole thing in perspective, that woman, if we're talking about the same thing, that woman actually tried to hit ICE agents with a car. And that's part of what the media does, and this is part of what the left does, is they'll take these incidents and they don't give it the proper perspective or context. So, yeah, if a lady tries to hit, if it's the same thing, lady tries to hit ICE agents with a car, you bet your you-know-what that they're going to pull her out, throw her to the ground, and handcuff her. Absolutely. He also mentioned a veteran who had been deported, a Marine, I think it was, that had been deported. And so I remember the story. I covered the story at the time. Guy by the name of, again, if we're talking about the same thing, Eduardo said, well, Trump had deported a Marine. And, okay, so let's look up the story. Give me some more context. Well, here it is. I covered this story at the time. Jose Segovia Benitez. All right, so he was indeed looks like he was a Marine, combat veteran. He was born in El Salvador. He was brought to the United States at the age of 3 or around the age of 2, per some accounts. Grew up in a place I used to live, actually, Long Beach, California. So a guy sounds like a great, if you want to put it in air quotes, whatever, but he sounds like a great American. He enlisted in the U.S. Marine Corps shortly after high school, serving from 1999 to 2004. Thank you for your service. Deployed twice to Iraq. He was injured by an IED, resulting in traumatic brain injury, PTSD, of course, all of that. He did receive multiple awards, including the Combat Action Ribbon. He was honorably discharged in 2004, but then he started committing a bunch of crimes. They say as a legal permanent resident, he was a green card holder. He applied for citizenship during service, but the process was not completed. So, and if I remember the story correctly, he just never took care of business. He never finished the process. So that's on him. But he did, when he returned from service, he struggled with untreated PTSD, addictions, related issue as well, traumatic brain injury. he had also been convicted of several felonies, including assault with a deadly weapon, narcotics possession, false imprisonment, and corporal injury to a spouse, i.e. domestic violence, and he served 8 years in prison. So when somebody, and I'm not knocking Eduardo, if he wants to be vague, that's fine, but I would like to get specific. Guy calls up and he says, well, the Trump administration, they deported a veteran, combat veteran. Okay. Well, let's look at the specifics, because if you're just going to throw out something that vague to make the Trump administration sound like they, deported the wrong person, well, we could still make the argument that this person should not have been deported because he was a combat veteran and what he really needed was help. We can have that conversation. But don't just say that the Trump, and I'm not saying Eduardo, I'm not knocking Eduardo, but this is something, and I don't even know if Eduardo's on the left, but this is something that the left and people against the Trump administration generally will do, is they'll mischaracterize a specific deportation. And then they'll try to use this to, make the entire process of deportation look bad. But due to his convictions and his non-citizen status, because remember, he didn't follow up on the process, and so his citizenship status was never completed. So then he, of course, became subject to deportation based on the laws of our country. So he could have finished the citizenship process. He chose not to. And I'm sorry that he was, dealing with traumatic brain injury and post-traumatic stress syndrome and all that, including the addictions and the related issues and the spousal issues that he had as well. Listen, this is all fodder for conversation, but let's be honest about what we're talking about. ICE did not just pull some random woman out of a car and throw her in handcuffs and into the back of a van. She tried to hit the ICE agents with her vehicle. Let's be honest about what we're talking about. And since we're talking about this, and if you're outraged over, this combat veteran being arrested and deported and all that kind of stuff, then do you have similar outrage for the guy who was in our country illegally, and a sanctuary city authorities did not cooperate with ICE to hand over a criminal illegal alien to ICE so that this guy could be deported? Instead, they released him back out into the community, and then that person commits a heinous crime like rape or murder. Are you equally as outraged over that? That would be my question, and that's what really angers me, is this selective anger, this selective outrage. You're outraged over this, drug-addicted guy who was, didn't take care of business and he gets sent to El Salvador. If you want to be outraged over that, that's fine. There's plenty of room for outrage there, and I understand that, but I do not understand the lack of outrage when you have a guy who is allowed to escape the clutches of ICE because of local sanctuary city policies, and then that guy rapes or kills a woman or a child. And nobody has any outrage over that, and that is what pisses me off. That is what angers me. And that is why there are so many Americans. I play that audio of J.D. Vance. He says, Americans feel like they're in the damn Twilight Zone. They can't figure it out. Why is nobody angry on the left about the guy who escapes the clutches of ICE because of local sanctuary city policies, and then the dude rapes or kills a child or a woman or whatever it is, and nobody seems to care? It's the selective outrage. I did a video once. You are what you are outraged over. What you are outraged over actually defines you. Or at the very least, helps define you. And if you're outraged over a woman being arrested for trying to hit ICE agents with a car, but you're not outraged over, a guy who is running around in the community, escapes the clutches of ICE multiple times because of local sanctuary city policies, and rapes or kills a woman or a child, and you're not outraged over that? What in God's green earth is wrong with you? So this Marine, I understand that there is enough here to talk about. And a guy called up earlier and he said, well, part of what's going on is, we've apparently stopped the raids on farms because, the farming community needs these, needs these illegal aliens, these migrants, whatever you want to call it, to do the farming work. And I understand that. Part of what I've been saying, and I appreciated the guy for calling, one of the things that I would say about that is, what we need to do is we need to look at these visa programs, and for the farms that need migrant workers, there is a visa for that. There is a visa program for that. So if you're raiding farms and you got a bunch of guys working on the farm and women working on the farm and they don't have the proper visa, well, that's on the farmer. Because there's always a visa program, and I forget what visa program it is, but there's always going to be a visa program to help the farmers. So if you need migrant workers, there's a program for that. 866-90-RED-EYE is the phone number, 866-907-3339. This is Dan calling from Salem, Wisconsin, where you are apparently, Dan, about to get, if you have not already, a bomb cyclone of a whole bunch of, snow and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's getting colder now.
Yeah. All right, well, go ahead. What's your comment?
Eduardo said that he doesn't like them breaking windows either. Well, these people aren't cooperating. And then another thing he said, they're deporting citizens. They're not deporting citizens.
Well, Dan,
he said he's listening. He said he's listening to Spanish radio talk shows, and this is what they're saying.
Oh,
so
yeah.
It's all left. It's all left-wing lies. They're Marxist Leninists, and they tell you to lie over and over again, and often enough, and big enough, and people begin to believe it. And does Eduardo from Tampa? Does he feel sorry for me, a tree service that's been in business for 37 years, and last year I had no jobs because there's crews of these illegals coming in and taking my tree service jobs? Do you feel sorry for me, Eduardo? No, I don't think he does. And that's the problem. And like you said, what pisses you off? That's what pisses me off. And these people are so putting all these videos and like Pritzker protecting them in Chicago. They're fighting against Bavino and all the ICE agents. And do they feel sorry for the guy who lost his job because of these illegal aliens? And the mother that lost her job? The grandmother that lost her job? How about your children? You're a citizen, you got children, they got to grow up and go to work. These illegals are going to take your kids' jobs now? There's laws that we have to abide by. Everybody does.
Yeah.
I have zoning laws. I have to park my equipment. I bought 3 acres in a business park to park my stuff. I have insurance on my equipment. I have insurance on my business. I pay taxes. And if I got some guy to come from over the border, can hire 5 more of them and pay them $50, $60 a day and put me out of business, what about me? Do they feel sorry for me? No. So I guess I said enough, Dan.
No, hey, Dan, I appreciate it. Have you noticed since, first of all, you want to give a shout out for your business?
Well, I'm in Salem, Wisconsin. It's American Tree Service.
So have you noticed with Trump's crackdown on illegal immigration, has it actually gotten any better for you? Because I know exactly what you're talking about.
Oh, yeah, it's starting to, but, we're going into winter, so it's slow, too. So now I'm into snow removal. But anyway, I just am so angry at the left that they brought in all these people. Look what it's costing us to deport these people, to round them up. Look, it's they said it's like $16,000 per illegal.
Yeah. Oh, listen, when you're talking about, and I appreciate the call, Dan, and good luck to you. A while back, I was doing a radio show on our affiliate WBAP in Dallas, and I was talking about how you have the illegal aliens that come into our country, and it's just like what Dan is talking about, where they suppress the wages. Because if you're I don't know, I'm just going to throw something out. If you're like a welder and, you are certified and all of these other things, and you are then going to get a certain hourly wage, but if some of these crews can hire an illegal alien for half the money, but he's not certified or whatever, then what that does is that is going to suppress the wages, because the guy who is illegal, he's willing to do the same welding a certified guy here in America. An American is going to do that same welding, but it's going to cost them less for the illegal alien to do it, because he hasn't gone through the certifications and he hasn't, done all of the things to make them, legal, applied for the visas and everything else. And so, yeah, and I remember that particular show because it was, and I remember it distinctly because I had all these guys that were calling up and they were telling me their stories of how their wages were being suppressed by these illegal aliens. Got a lot more straight ahead on Red Eye Radio.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It is Red Eye Radio. 866-90-RED-EYE is the phone number, 866-907-3339. If you're listening on the radio, thank you very much. And if you are heading into work or the office or whatever, and you want to pick up our stream, just a quick little technical programming note. Red Eye Radio app apparently is not working right now. So we have, I know many stations, but I know two right off the bat. You can listen to the stream on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. That is my radio station in Nashville, Tennessee, or the station out of Detroit, WJR. Both streams are working right now. If you want to pick up the show, you can on those streams.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.